Hi, Professor Gronlund here. Since you're watching videos about nutrition, most likely you are interested in eating healthy. Maybe you are thinking about the relationship between diet and chronic diseases that affect the quality of life and wondering if you should make a few changes. Maybe you're wondering where the heck to start. Fortunately, there are several tools to help you planning a healthy diet. Ever since the 1940s, the U.S. has provided recommended intakes of nutrients based on gender and age. Since the mid-1990s, the U.S. and Canadian governments have collaborated on developing these recommendations. They fund an independent National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine to oversee the process. The current system of recommendations is called the Dietary Reference Intakes, or DRIs. I suggest at this point you may want to start a list of abbreviations and their definitions. For vitamins and minerals, the values included in the DRI are the EAR, RDA, AI, and UL. You see what I mean about those abbreviations? The estimated average requirement, or EAR, are determined by reviewing scientific studies, and the EAR represents the quantity of a vitamin or mineral to meet the nutritional needs of half of the healthy population. In public health, recommendations are usually made for most of the population. So, that EAR is used to calculate the amount needed for 97% of the population. This value is probably familiar to you. It's called the RDA, the Recommended Dietary Allowance. With almost all of the vitamins and minerals, if you do not get enough of the nutrient, you can develop deficiency symptoms. For example, you may already know that scurvy is associated with not getting enough vitamin C. The EAR and RDA values are set to help people avoid symptoms of deficiency. The DRI values may also include AIs, or adequate intakes. AR values are published for nutrients that do not have enough science studies that can be used to establish an EAR. In those cases, experts in nutrition and medicine estimate the likely needs and publish it as an AI. One more category are ULs. On the opposite end of the continuum from deficiency is getting too much of a nutrient, which can result in toxicity symptoms. With many nutrients, if you consume too much, the body will just limit further absorption of it, or it will excrete it. However, some nutrients, such as iron and vitamins A and D, can reach toxic levels, and that's where the ULs are needed. From normal food intake, it's extremely unlikely to reach those levels. However, people that take supplements and consume a lot of fortified foods can more easily reach those toxic levels. DRI values are also given for energy requirements. For the calorie-containing nutrients, that means the proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, acceptable macronutrient density ranges, that's AMDRs, are provided. These values are given as a percent of the total calories you need per day. In a separate video, we will look at how to estimate the number of calories you need. That value is called the Estimated Energy Requirement, or EER. For the general population, most calories should come from complex carbohydrates, followed by healthy fats, and then proteins. So, how can this information be used for diet planning? Suppose that you ran a diet analysis and you see that most of your nutrients are close to the recommended, but a couple are not. For example, here vitamin E is low. Now you can look up foods that contain vitamin E and add more of those foods to your diet. But how about if you ran that analysis and the results are that most of the nutrients are not even close to the recommended? you're going to have to reshape your meal planning strategies, and there are other tools to help. Since the 1980s, the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the Department of Health and Human Services have collaboratively issued the Dietary Guidelines for Americans, which describe principles for making daily food choices. The Dietary Guidelines has an advisory committee, and it's composed of scientists and physicians, and they update those guidelines every 5 years. The process itself is very transparent. If you go to the website in the video description and select the tab for Work Underway, you can see and even participate in the development of the next guidelines. The details of the current guidelines can also be found on their website. But to summarize, the focus is on maintaining healthy eating patterns appropriate for your life stage, while enjoying a variety of healthy foods like fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, seeds, lean meats, based on your food preferences, while staying within your calorie limits. The guidelines also emphasize consuming foods with unhealthy ingredients such as saturated fats, simple sugars, salt, in smaller portions, less frequently. Another tool is a visual aid. It's called the MyPlate. This replaced the old food pyramids that you may remember. That visual helps control portions of different food groups. The link to the MyPlate website is also in the video description. You will find suggestions for each food group, recipes, and the coolest of all, a free app that can help you with meal planning. One more tool I want to mention is food labels. Today we take food labels for granted, but it wasn't so long ago that it was anyone's guess as to what was in that bottle being sold as ketchup or that gallon of milk. In the 1800s, as Americans moved away from their agricultural work and their food sources into the cities, they relied on canned, bottled, and packaged foods. Consumer fraud was rampant. President Zachary Taylor died from consuming contaminated food at a picnic. But in the late 1800s, Harvey Washington Wiley became the chief chemist at what today is the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. His work, along with books such as The Jungle by Upton Sinclair, revealed just how adulterated our food supply was. If you're a reader, there's an excellent book called The Poison Squad by Deborah Blum about the early history of the FDA. In 1913, the U.S. became the first country to enact mandatory food labeling when it passed the Gould Net Weight Amendment to the 1906 Pure Food and Drug Act. Labeling requirements have changed many times throughout this last century. The most recent change took effect in 2020. Food labels today are an excellent source of information. Suppose that you set a goal, for example, you wanted to increase the amount of calcium or increase your dietary fiber. A quick glance at a food label will tell you which product can help you meet your goals. If you are already following the recommendations, that's great. You are lowering your risk for so many diet-related chronic diseases. If you're just starting on the path to better eating, I suggest that you pick one day this week and use the guidelines to plan for the day. Then do one day next week and one day the week after. Then eat intentionally 2 days the following week, and then 3. In just a few months, you will be eating healthy most of the days of the week, and it will start to become a healthy eating pattern. Try it. You'll see. I hope you eat well to live healthy.